Mikey P, Mike Probosi, back in the Money Players podcast, Keeneland edition Saturday. And I have the morning line maker for Keeneland for this Saturday, late pick 5, Nick Tammaro. Nick, I haven't seen any morning line bashing on Twitter. What's the problem?
Let's hope it stays that way, right? No, it's been okay so far. Had a couple that, didn't go exactly as planned, but Invictus, the second time starter out of Serengeti Empress that won the opener, I believe, on Tuesday, I had priced a little high, but I expected Ian Wilkes' favorite to go off a little lower. And otherwise, there's been some scratches that have helped. Obviously, off the turf days, the line becomes irrelevant. But things have been okay so far. It must be all that practice I've gotten making them for Arabian races at Sam Houston all winter.
Yeah, crushing it so far. Any quick bluegrass thoughts from the Tuesday card? It seemed to, I know you were Burnham Square in that spot, set up for him, and he got it done.
Yeah, I thought it was a very satisfying result on many fronts, right? One of which is that the race now gets quicker early with East Avenue bouncing back, and East Avenue is clearly a good horse, so I'm glad to see him run well and look forward to him, having a chance in the Derby now. Burnham Square is a horse that continues to progress, obviously ran a faster race and is in the hands of likable connections. I thought the jockey switch helped quite a bit going to Kentucky. Nothing against Edgar Zayas, but obviously Brian Hernandez Jr. is a very accomplished rider and gave him a good ride all in all. A horse like that, you need to keep him in the clear. You need to keep him out of trouble. You're going to eventually give up some ground in doing so, but I thought that went well. And, obviously the big loser in the race was Chancer McPatrick. And I'm not shocked by it whatsoever. I was really surprised with how hard the public went for him, especially, and we talked about this doing the video, especially given that he wasn't even favored in Tampa Derby, right? So it was kind of amazing that he came back and was such a clear favorite here. I understand Flavien Prat is riding really well there, but I was shocked at the amount of money he took, and he did not run well really at all. So he'll end up, I would imagine, cutting back in distance if he feels like a horse that just has not benefited from getting more ground. So 1, 2, 3 finishers look like they'll all go. And River Thames feels like a horse where it's kind of inconceivable he could win the Derby, but he's certainly earned his way in now.
Yeah, and certainly definitely going to heat up the pace for the Derby, which, like you mentioned, that's something that's going to make that Derby that much more intriguing now that we have some pace up front and certainly pace that's legitimate and has shown ability to get away and is going to have to be respected. So that's certainly an interesting development out of the bluegrass. 8 straight days at Keeneland rolls on here. And since the weather has cleared up, we've certainly had plenty of fantastic racing, fantastic cards.
We have, yeah, it's been great. Weather's gotten better now, and hats off to the maintenance crew there. They really got the track in tip-top shape pretty quickly after all that rain. So, yeah, nice to see us already getting into the back half of this card because this is program number 7. We're only running 15 days in the spring.
Well, let's jump to this late pick 5 for Saturday at Keeneland. It starts in race number 7, Nick. It starts on the dirt, 6.5 straight 3-year-olds maiden special weights. And these maiden special weights have been pretty wide open. This one, no exception.
Yeah, it is to an extent, though. I will admit that having made this line right around when the first race of the meet was running, if I had it to do over again, I would have made the One Valiant Humor quite a bit shorter. So these Brad Cox and Flavien Prat horses are getting bet relentlessly right now. And I made this horse the favorite at 7-2. He's going to go off much, much shorter than that. So he'll probably be sub 2-1. My problem in here was I didn't know exactly what to do with the 12 Modus Bestia. And Richie Baltas had a horse start in the nightcap on Wednesday that actually had a brutal trip, and who knows where he would have finished if he had been able to get a clear run. But this is a horse that's ridden by Raylu. That horse was ridden by Pratt. So it's hard to imagine he's going to get the same kind of action, though his debut was very good when he was second to San Saba at 16-1, earned a 79 buyer in there, got a 104 time form number. Both of those figures better than what Valiant Humor put forth on debut. But I think when all is said and done, the one will end up going off a pretty solid favorite. The 2 has a quick workout that kind of caught my attention. The pedigree is not overwhelming, but it's solid enough. And I've seen some of these Will Walden horses take real money. I think the horse that everybody went nuts about me making too big a price last year was a Will Walden trainee named Barksdale. And so I wanted to give him a little bit of his due, looking like he's probably training quite forwardly. So, I figure I'm Captain Obvious here. I figure the winner probably comes from the 1, 2, and 12. And more often than not, the 1 probably wires this field.
Yeah, agree on the one. Definitely the top pick there. Their speed and inside has done fairly well so far. Irad shows up on the two, very sharp for the barn. Has won 3 of 5 for that barn at Keeneland within the last 2 years. So definitely that when they reach for him, I think that they're live. So I think that one could be used. Another first you didn't mention, Big Trust, the 7. It's Brian Lynch here, another one with pretty fast workouts. Bullet on March the 28th there, 1 out of 52. And these Florida horses certainly doing very well at Gulfstream. And just an interesting one. And Justify on the top there. They paid 300,000. And so I just think those connections, have possibilities in this race. And then the 8, I think, could be used too. Zandvoort is the horse's name. It's Asmussen, Blinkers, Lasix. Was favored first time out at Ellis back in August of last year, showed speed and was bet in both races, and just ultimately, I thought raced better on debut, obviously, than the second time out, but has been okay so far. Another one they paid a lot of money for. So, Jose Ortiz shows up on this one. I just think that maybe, rates a shot versus, some firsters here, some ones that maybe we're not quite sure about. One of those races that I think you could take a few.
Yeah, and look, Steve over the last few years has done very, very poorly at Keeneland, but got a win the other day in the Commonwealth with Extra Anejo. Over the last 5 years, he's really had the majority of his success in the fall at Keeneland. So overall, with maidens on dirt at Keeneland, he's just 7% with an 89-cent ROI, and had one winner in that category in the spring last year. Had none the spring before. So it's these are horses that generally Steve is getting ready for Churchill, and this is a horse who probably needed a race anyway. So I'm not going to be surprised if he's a little short, and then maybe we get him back about the second or third week at Churchill.
Let's jump to race 8 and head to the grass. Again, another straight 3-year-old race, a mile and a 16th. And I was a little spready, but not too bad here. I went to the 2 Always Forever, 6-1 morning line. Comes out of a nice fairgrounds win back on February the 27th. Figure was solid there, coming off the bench. Added Lasix there, and you get Manny Franco here, an inside post. I thought, should be close enough to the pace. The fairgrounds turf horses have been doing okay, so I was going to use that one. I thought the 8, Bessie Abbott, rated a chance here. Now, one first time out in Ireland against 14 other horses was 50-1 on a soft course, but it's Cassie. It's Jose Ortiz. This horse looks to be pretty well prepared for this spot. Has some turf works down in Florida, especially one on March 14th that was pretty sharp down there. So I thought that one could be used. And then the 11, I think, will take a lot of money. Al Jafra for Chad Brown. That's another one racing over in France to start the career. Nice win. Back in September. Now you add Lasix, you get Pratt. A lot of money is probably going to find this one here. What say you?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting that that Chad entered the 11 on Friday as well, and that was the same race. It's just amazing that Keeneland can card that many one other thens and have that level of interest in all these races. It's unclear to me how good this filly really is. I mean, she made 2 starts in France, both of which were at Chantilly, which is clearly one of the A racetracks over there. She got the job done at second asking at 9 furlongs on a soft turf course. She's first time Lasix now. Historically, Chad's done really well with these types, and Pratt's on board. So you would think it was that pace and turf workout that made me think, she's probably pretty good. So I would imagine the public will go pretty heavy there. The 5 Burning Pine is a first time on turf in North America. She's a half to 2024 Transylvania winner, Neat. I should say 2024 Bob Bork Texas Turf Mile winner, Neat, who also grabbed a couple of stakes, including the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame. The Brad Cox horse in here, the 2 Always Forever, is not a particularly tough type. I find the fairgrounds a bit vexing in terms of getting a line on how the public handles it. It seemed like the public rejected fairgrounds form pretty significantly last year, but they're betting it a little bit more this time around. So this is a filly who got the job done at third asking and had the misfortune of running into Vixen in her second career start. And there's probably an argument to be made that Vixen is right on par with her stablemate Nitrogen, who she was beaten by yesterday, but had the much, much tougher trip of it. So it seems like one of the choices is going to get the job done here. The balance of the field is just not very strong. So I think what you're inclined to do is maybe take the best of these well-backed horses, which will probably be the 5 Burning Pine, and maybe try and hitch your wagon there and hope that she can wire this field.
Yeah, and it's a good race, and these turf races, full fields, trips matter. Obviously, have been very wide open so far, and this is absolutely no exception. That starts the late pick 4 also on Saturday, and we're going to head to the stakes portion of the card. Let's dive in to the Grade 3 Lexington Stakes, Mount of 16th. We got another Derby prep, Nick, although a lot of these, I would say these horses more maybe like a Preakness type prep here. And it's the return of Bullard, comes back after being entered in a few spots this spring. Spike the Fever shows up now. You have this one 9-2 morning line, has to face horses like Prater, who you have the favorite here. I know a lot of ITM people are high on Bullard. Are you as high on this one? What say you here about the Lexington?
I'm not, and I've already been told I made this horse too big a price, so maybe that ends up being the case. But he did run a fast race 2 back in the Bob Hope. I thought he was a little underwhelming in his next start in the San Vicente behind Barnes, and kind of looked like he took a bit of a step back. I also have no line on how this horse is going to route. Pedigree-wise, he should love it. But the way he ran in the Bob Hope really leads you down the road of one-run closing sprinter, right? He sat back, got a big pace, gobbled him up, and went on with it. Those moves don't translate to a route of ground. I think the public is going to hone in on Prater, mainly because of the connections, but the win last out, yes, granted, Kinetic Control came back today and had kind of a rough trip when he was up the track and a one other then. I think there's an argument that race could have been faster. These dirt races at Gulfstream often live in isolation in terms of how many other dirt races there are on the card. I did want to give Hypnus one more shot. I know I liked him last out and he was bad, but these horses are nowhere near that caliber. And this is Keeneland, where Kenny McPeak is just far more proficient. So why not give him a try at what should be a decent price? The blinkers are going on. If that can get him a little bit more engaged early, I don't think it'll hurt his chances at all. And one of the problems with Bullard is that Rolando's coming out of this race, which means there's even less speed. And there is not a lot of pace in this race. This might be a situation where Flavian Pratt is able to get this horse right to the top, that being Prater. And if that's the case, then good luck to everybody else. Because if I'm not mistaken, Rolando ran on Monday against Colloquial. So yeah, he'll be he won't be participating, and that's going to make things a lot easier for Prater.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about those horses that raced on Monday, because Touchy raced in that race also. Do you think that Ward brings this one back in the spot, or do you think they look for something else?
I don't think so. You know, they were able to enter for this after that race had been moved. So I think they probably were just, taking as many options as possible. I think there was probably even a thought on some people's part that race may not even get run, given that they were in the midst of the weather situation. So I would assume that both Touchy and Rolando are coming out of here. That would be an un-Wesley-like move. He's done it, but just not with any regularity. So again, that's another horse that would really help the cause of a horse like Prater. It probably helps Gosger as well, who was an impressive second out winner at Gulfstream and beat Pitkin, who came back and underperformed a little behind Shangri-La Road on Tuesday afternoon. But Gosger feels like a horse who still got some upside as well.
Now with Prater here, I know that whenever he won that one other than, we had done a recap show and did mention this horse just with all the buzz that he got with the high figures at 2. Do you think Chad, he's known for bringing these, sort of strangers into the Preakness and upsetting the apple cart? So that looks like maybe the plan for this one.
Yeah, I think that's 100% the plan. I think Chad's kind of looking for the backdoor route to the Preakness, and this feels like the right horse, as long as he'll go the distance. I think that's probably the only real worry. He's certainly bred for it, being an Into Mischief out of a dam who was actually a very nice racehorse. She did the majority of her damage at 7/8. She was capable of going a mile, but she was really at her best at 7 furlongs. You're hoping that the Curlin part of it really brings out the best in her distance-wise, but that's what it'll boil down to, is how effectively this horse stretches out. Because if he does, then yeah, I would assume with a good performance, you'll see him in the Preakness.
Final thoughts for the Lexington. You going Prater here? I know you want to give Hypnus another chance. It seems like those two for you.
Yeah, I don't really see much beyond them. I mean, I'd use Gosger a little bit as a backup, but that's about all it boils down to. And I don't see really much beyond that. So I kind of want to squeeze Hypnos into the number as best I can. Win end, it might be a little much, but he's going to be a good enough price for me to try.
Well, you hear that, ITM brethren. No Bullard for Nick Tammaro. No Bullard for Mikey P. I would probably look to Gosger and Prater. I think it's probably going to be one of those two. I'm no fan of Hypnos, and I'm just not going to jump on the train here. Gets the blinkers now, and maybe he shows up. Maybe some of that talent shines through. Maybe he's just been in too tough, but really not for me in the Lexington this weekend. Let's jump to the 10th race for the Pick 5 on Saturday at Keeneland. Grade 1, Jenny Wiley, Nick. This is an excellent race. Really, so many chances here. And, I know that there's plenty of ITM weight that's going to be on the 9. No show, Sammy Joe. Lots of positive reports coming out of the Graham Motion barn on this one. What say you in this race?
Yeah, I applaud anybody who wants to bet no show Sammy Joe in here. I mean, she's going to have to be really good to win this race. It's not going to shock me. She's still got upside given how lightly raced she is, but this is a way harder race than anything she's been in domestically. Graham's good off the layoff, so it wouldn't shock me. This is a fun race, Mikey. This is a good matchup of some domestic horses that are solid. There are a few up and comers, and then you've got these 3 internationals headed by Excellent Truth for Resolute Racing, who's been running in France primarily throughout her career thus far, and now joins the care of Chad Brown. I mean, this is a Group 1 placed filly, so mare, I should say at this point. She's run against the very best of what we've seen over there. She ran into Blue Rose Sen as a late season 3-year-old in 2023. She had an abbreviated campaign last year, but it culminated again in that second in the pre-Rothschild, and she's been off since then. I don't think the layoff is a big worry. Chad's done well with international shippers, and that was why I made her the favorite. I didn't know exactly what to do with the 2, Choisia, who was victorious last out in the Balanchine. That is a filly and mare race run during the Carnival in Dubai that annually brings together some of the good horses that they have over there. And people in America are going to recognize the second name, Cinderella's Dream, who won last year's Belmont Oaks and then was well fancied. I believe she won the Saratoga Oaks as well, and later ran in the Breeders' Cup. So they're going to notice that form and probably upgrade this mare. She is also one who likes to be forwardly placed, and she may end up having the unenviable task of chasing Kehoe Beach early. Don't sleep on Kehoe Beach. This filly is way better, I think, than people realize. And while it hasn't really been a typical Wesley-like start to the Keeneland meet, it's still Wesley at Keeneland. So I made her a pretty short price, feeling like she was the one that was going to take some real action. There were horses in here that I had to decide what to do and sort of throw them out in terms of the odds-making process, and they ended up being the 1-2 finishers of the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf. I just don't know what to do with Be Your Best and Sacred Wish, both of whom have been good enough on their best days, probably Sacred Wish more so than Be Your Best, but I felt like they'd be the forgotten 2 in the wagering. But this is a really fun race, a really contentious race, and I will tell you that, depending on what we see in terms of any kind of profile on the Keeneland turf, it's been very fair for the most part. If anything, it's actually favored, I think, horses coming from off the pace. If it's looking like it's firming up a little bit and maybe tightening up, I would be willing to bet that Kehoe Beach can wire this field.
My thing with Kehoe Beach is this. I do think she's very good. She's willing to, I think, push this pace. I mean, if you look at that October 26th race, she went sub 23 early and just gutted that field. And these Euros, while they're used to pressing, some slower type paces, I feel like that she's going to really, kind of rip this race apart early. And that's going to put them on the back foot. Are they going to be able to respond to that? Because I do think she's going to keep going. And Dettori, is very, very capable of jumping her out and having her wire, like any horse wire a field. But, especially her, she's going to be on the front by herself. I mean, there's really nobody to push her in this race. Maybe Be Your Best would want to sit just off. I thought she got a perfect trip in that Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf. And I do think that the track profile suited the top 2 finishers in there. So I don't want either one of them. The Euros, I just don't know if they'll be quick enough to handle Kehoe Beach early. And that's going to be a problem, especially if she keeps going. So for me, I like her a lot in here. I think she has a huge chance to step forward now. But I am going to use no show Sammy Joe. Just if you watch the last workout, she's really coming into this race very well. newly turned 5-year-old. I think she's improving, motion. He brings them into Keeneland ready. I'm just, I know his Gulfstream meet wasn't exactly, the greatest, and he failed to get a lot of wins there, but his Tampa horses were racing very well. And now, he comes in with this horse that's working extremely well. I think can be close enough with that post that she could maybe get first round. I like Manny getting on this horse. I just think there's a lot of positives here. And yes, she's going to have to class up, but she might get the jump. She's going to have to on some of these Europeans because they're just going to, outkick her. They usually do those sorts of things. And some of these other, the Euros, like the one is running a lot of straight races, races on, like a flat mile on a straight course. So sometimes those things can be challenges for these horses shipping in. Also, I don't know. I'm interested in Kehoe Beach, and I'm interested in those no-show Sammy Joe in the race. And I'm gonna, let the Euros beat me. If I were to take a Euro, maybe the 6, one horse you didn't mention, Jabra. This horse I thought raced well last year. Was certainly racing in classy races. Was second in the Grade 1 back in July at Porto Fortuna. I think she would be bet in this race. So plenty to like about that one. Also, you get Rosario. Maybe from off the pace, there's things to like about that one too.
Yeah, I think one of the common running lines in there is she beat and then was disqualified a filly named Rakia, who, if I'm remembering correctly, Rakia is the horse that came over and won the Goldakova on the Breeders' Cup undercard. So there's right. Rakia is actually now in the care of Todd Pletcher and ran somewhat poorly in her last start, I think on Fountain of Youth Day. But again, that's a running line that people will have some familiarity with. Rakia finished 5th in the Pegasus. Well, it was actually the Pegasus World Cup filly in Mare Turf. I don't. My concern with Jabbar was the distance. It looks to me like she might be more of a sprinter. But I've lost plenty of money over the years thinking these Euros either were or weren't going to get the distance relative to what they had been doing over there, and the complete opposite happened. So it just, the Kehoe Beach thing for me is you think back to like last year's Jenny Wiley, a lot of the QE2s as time has gone by. Speed plays well on the Keeneland turf, and if you're able to get out there and get isolated, it really felt like Kehoe Beach was coming into her own at the end of last year. Now, I suppose I can't really dispute the argument that anybody would have that's, hey, she's not that much faster than a horse like No Show Sammy Joe. How could one be 7-2 and one is 15-1? And I think the difference is that the human connections on Kehoe Beach are going to generate a little bit more interest, as is her running style. So, I think that's kind of what it boils down to. The public has been a little soft on New York form as well, more so dirt than anything else. But I'm going to be intrigued to see what ends up happening odds-wise with No Show Sammy Joe. I'm not going to be surprised if she's bet in half off that 15-1 morning line. Somebody in here that I made short is not going to get bet, right? And so that means, and somebody who I made a little longer than I'd like to is going to get bet. It's just a very tough race to make a line.
Yeah, I think one of the Euros might get lost here, but honestly,
I think Jabbar is the one that's likeliest to get lost.
Yeah. So, but I don't mind the line here, especially, with, Chad Brown and Pratt, with the one,
right.
The 2 is going to take money, 2 straight wins. I mean, there's, and Kehoe Beach, I agree with that line. I think, she'll be right around, 3.5, 4-1 in the race because she has a pace edge. And a lot of people like to bet speed. She has 3 straight wins. I mean, I have no problems with this line whatsoever. And I would tell you if I,
I would expect nothing less, my friend.
Let's jump to the last race. Straight 3-year-olds. Nick, 7 furlongs on the dirt. How are we going to get paid?
I mean, Sherbini's supposed to win this race, right? She's not the easiest horse to trust, but just class-wise, she towers over these, having been Grade 1 placed last year behind Immersive and Quiet Side. Immersive, of course, won the 2-year-old championship, and Quiet Side's now a multiple graded stake winner at 3. So Mark Hasse just kind of reading the condition book the right way and trying to get her a nice soft spot to get her 3-year-old campaign started because she's just way faster than these horses on paper. Only gets into this race because she won a maiden auction race. And so again, Mark taking full advantage of that. What do the alternatives look like? I mean, I guess you've got to like Autumn Rhythm a little bit. Madeline's Promise I felt was dangerous. One of the things with Dale thus far is if his horses are taking money, they're live. You won't see that, of course, if you're playing the pick 5 until it's a little too late. But they felt like the main two. I don't have a big argument with Zagruda, who was a blowout winner last out, now gets Pratt. I feel like you're just going to have to pay a heavy tax on the Pratt and Cox combo there. And I guess if Black Ginger is able to get in off the layoff, I would probably be willing to include her a little bit underneath. My worry, Mikey, was that Sherbini's an off the pace type, right? So I'd like somebody that's going to be a little bit more forward. I'm almost wondering if Irad is going to try and deliberately get her into the race a little bit more early. The speed is very suspect in here. That's kind of why I wanted to use Madeline's Promise, because I felt like push comes to shove, she'll be forwardly placed.
Yeah, I was 6 and 8. Also, I agree with that. Madeline's Promise. I mean, if you look, won a maiden 50 on the front, enough that they went into the Bonadeo. That's, I know it's a 5-horse race, but Queen's MG got hurt coming out of that race, but Lacar won the Ashland. Ballerina Doro went to New York and won that stake up there. So, she was chasing some toughies there. She's going to get the front here. I mean, and Romans is just having one of the better years that he's really had, especially early. I mean, his horses are running everywhere. So I don't mind her. I do think, going short, she gets the front. They're going to have to catch her. And, Sherbini was also eligible, was entered. I think it was maybe Monday this week, and ended up, it was either Sunday or Monday, got scratched out. But, just probably supposed to win this race. So I was 6-8 to finish. But looking at some of your others, I could see the 13 maybe, especially if that one draws in. So just, keep an eye on scratches. Some of these horses have been coming out with the early draws and things. Well, Nick, this is, I think, a fun Keeneland card. It's not quite the Bluegrass card we had on Tuesday, but, we got full fields. We got big pools. I mean, it's Keeneland.
Plenty to look forward to. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is at Keeneland. Every day is a big day of racing. So looking forward to it and glad we could chat about it a little.
Absolutely. Always great to be with you. Lots of coverage on the In the Money YouTube channel and on the audio side. Nick, I'm sure we're going to get together soon. We've been doing recaps. We're doing all kind of stuff. So, can't wait to see you soon.
Very much so. I agree completely. Can't wait for it. And good luck this weekend.
This has been a production of In the Money Media. Enjoy Keeneland. Check out In the Money Plus for the weekend. We're going to have some extra shows on Saturday and Sunday. We'll see you guys next time.